Hello everyone, welcome to another exciting Egbon Tech tutorial. In this video, I'm going to show you how to build a modern blog website UI from scratch using Next.js 16, React, Tailwind CSS, and TypeScript. We will focus on clean layout, responsive design, and a scalable folder structure that you can reuse in your project. This is a UI only build, perfect if you want to practice front-end architecture or plug it into a full stack app later. And in the next video of this channel, I'm going to be turning this exact UI into a full stack blog application. I'm going to release the full stack version. It's going to contain both the UI and the backend with complete authentication and backend integration with modern tools like Prisma and Postgres. Now, if you are looking to improve your front-end skills or build a production-ready UI with Next.js, you are definitely going to enjoy this one. Okay, so I'm going to take you through what we are going to build together in this video. So first of all, when a user actually lands on this website, the user is going to say this right here: welcome to Tech Blog, discover stories and creative ideas. Then the user is going to see this, the summary of the about page, and also the user is going to see the recent articles. Okay, we're also going to have a write page where the user can actually go to actually write a new article. So if a user wants to write a new article, the user has to go to the write page. The user can type and actually create a new article right here. Now, users will only be able to access this page if you're actually logged in. We're also going to have the articles page that's going to actually load out all the articles we're going to have in this web page. And we're going to have this button right here that we can click on to actually load more articles. Okay. And then we're also going to have the about page where you can actually learn about the website, or everything about the website, about Tech Blog, why Tech Blog, what we write about, beautiful developers and stuff. And we have this explore button right here. Now, not just that, in this first part of the tutorial, we are creating just the UI. We're also going to create reusable models. Okay, you're going to learn how to create reusable models in a React and Next.js application. So I'm going to log out this user to actually see the login button. And then when we see the login button, we can click on this login button to actually open up the sign in model. And then we're going to have this continue with Google, continue with GitHub button right here. Also, we're also going to have a search model. When we click on this search button, it's going to open up the search model. We can actually search for articles in this website. I'll just search for PHP. And then I'm going to see a post that's actually related to PHP. And when I click on this post, it's going to bring me right here to the post view page. And we're also going to create this post view page right here. Okay. Now, for this post view page, we're going to have this text, this image, and also the content of the blog post. And then we have this back to all articles. When we click on this back to all articles, it's going to take us to the articles page. Okay. And we're also going to have this footer right here. We're going to have this footer right here, 2025. Copyright 2026, Tech Blog, all rights reserved. Also, we have these quick links right here in the footer. And then we're also going to have some action buttons for a user. If the blog post the user is viewing is their actual blog post, they should be able to edit and delete their blog post. So I'll click on login, and I'll log in with GitHub. I'll go back to that blog post, read article, and then we'll scroll down. You can actually see the edit and the delete button right here. And also, you're going to notice that when we scroll, you're going to see this little transparency in this navbar right here. You can see how cool that actually looks. That's what you actually see in modern websites. And you're going to learn how to actually do this class effect in this tutorial. Now, we're not going to actually stop there. We're going to ensure that this entire website is actually fully responsive and mobile friendly. Okay, so you can actually use this to actually add this to your portfolio, and it's going to look really, really good. I'll go to small screen device. I'll just reduce the screen of this application. You can see that this application is going to be fully responsive. I'll go to the home page. And when I reduce this to small screen device and even for mobile device, it's going to be fully responsive. And then we're going to have this hamburger menu icon right here to actually open up the mobile menu, and it looks really good. We can actually click on articles to go to the articles page. We can click on about to go to the about page, and this application looks fully responsive. Now, if you are excited about this tutorial, smash on the like button and leave a comment below. 1 like equals to 1 prayer for the YouTube algorithm to push this content to more people like you who are going to find it very, very helpful. And basically just consider it as a little way of your support on the channel. And lastly, if you like to watch the full stack build, ensure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you'll be notified when I release the full stack build of this project. Let's actually dive into the video. Now we're going to be starting this project from absolute scratch. All I have inside this Visual Studio Code, I only have this empty folder right here, tech block. Okay, so the very first step we have to take, we have to create a new Next.js project. So we're going to head over to nextjs.org, the official Next.js documentation website. I'll click on Get Started and you can read all about Next.js right here. I'm going to go over to installation. And we can see right here what we have to do to actually install Next.js in our local machine. Now there are lots of package managers here. We have PNPM, NPM, we have Yarn, and then we have Bone. Now for this tutorial, I'm going to be making use of PNPM package manager, but you can actually follow along using NPM. Okay, so I'm going to actually explain how you can follow along using NPM. But if you want to actually download the PNPM package manager, which I will advise you to, because it's actually faster than NPM and it handles packages better than NPM, then you can go over to the official PNPM website, pnpm.io, click on Get Started, and then I'm just going to scroll down to using other packages to install PNPM. Because if you are watching this tutorial, I'm assuming you already have Node.js installed, and if you have Node.js installed, you already have Node Package Manager installed, which means you can use your Node Package Manager to run this command right here, npm install global PNPM. Okay, and that's going to install PNPM in your local machine, and then you'll be able to use PNPM to manage your project dependencies. I'm going to head back to Next.js. Now, there are some system requirements for you to actually create this project. First of all, your Node.js version has to be version 20.9 and above. Okay, so if you have a Node.js version that is less than this version, you might not be able to actually run this command. Okay, and also your operating system must be a macOS, Windows, or a Linux operating system. So we're going to copy this command right here, pnpm create next app at latest. Now, if you are using npm, then you're going to copy this one right here. If for some reason you want to stick to your npm package manager, then you're going to use this one right here, nps create next app at latest. It's basically going to do the same thing. So I'm going to head back to Visual Studio Code. I'm going to open up this terminal right here, and then I'll just paste that right here, pnpm create next app at latest. I want this project to be created inside this tech block folder. So I want to say // to ensure it's created inside that tech block folder we have. So I'll click on enter. Now this is going to ask us some question. Would you like to use the recommend Next.js default? No, I want to actually customize the settings. So I'll just go to customize settings. And now let me just expand this a bit more. Now, would you like to use TypeScript? Yes, we want to make use of TypeScript. Would you like to use ESLint? Yes, we want to make use of ESLint. Would you like to use React Compiler? No. Would you like to use Tailwind CSS? Yes. Would you like your code inside a SRC directory? Yes. Would you like to use App Router? Yes. No, we don't want to customize this. Then that's going to actually start installing our dependencies. And after all that, you're going to see that our package has been installed. You can see all the dev dependencies we are working with right here, and also the dependencies we're actually working with. Now, this is actually the beauty of PNPM. Now, what PNPM does is that anytime we install a package, it's not going to be installed in this project. It's going to install it globally in our computer. So anytime we want to install that package, it's just going to create a link to that package in our computer. You can notice right here that due to the fact that I've actually created this project before, you're going to notice that we only downloaded 2 new packages. The other packages are going to be reused from the ones I already have installed in my machine to actually create this project. And that's one of the beauty of PNPM. So now to actually run this project, we're going to do PNPM run dev. Now if you are still using npm, you're going to run npm run dev. So basically going to do the same thing. Now to open up this project in a web browser, you're just going to follow this right here, localhost port 3000. I'm going to take you to the project in a web browser. So I want to close this terminal up. And when we open up the project, you can see right now that we have a new Next.js project right here. Okay, so now let's actually get rid of the files we don't need and the code we don't need. So I'll go to globals.css. First of all, I'm just going to get rid of all this CSS apart from this import Tailwind CSS right here, because we obviously need Tailwind CSS in our project. I'm going to go to page.css. I'm just going to get rid of everything I have here. I'm going to put a paragraph tag. I'm going to say hello everybody, and then I'll go to layer.css file. Now this layout.css file, this is the root layout. You can see right here the name of the component. This is the root layout of your application, which means whatever pages we create in this application, whether we create the home page, whether it's the home page, the about page, or whatever page we create, the children, those pages are going to be rendered right here as children to this component, which means whatever styles or whatever components we pass to this layout component is going to be rendered or applied to whatever page we created. So the very first step, I'm going to change the title of this page. I'm going to call this tech blog. Then the description of the page is going to be tech blog Egbon Tech. And then I'm going to actually update the font family. I want to make use of poppins, so I'm get rid of these. I'm going to say const poppins. It's going to be equals to poppins. I'm going to get that from Nest font variable font poppins subset Latin. Finally, the weights. It's going to be an array of the weights we want. I'll do 300, 400, 500, 600, and 700. And then I'm going to scroll down right here and actually apply that font to our project. So right here, I'm going to say poppins.class name. That's going to ensure that the poppins font you are getting from Google is actually applied to the entire web page. Remember I said that this, because this is the body tag, this is where the body tag is, whatever styles we apply is going to be applied to the entire application. So when we go back to our project, we actually see that text right here, hello everybody, and the font is actually applied, poppins, and you can see the title we actually updated, tech blog. Great job. So the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to set up some custom colors we're going to need in our project. So inside this globals of CSS, I'm going to paste this right here. We're going to have color primary, color background, color secondary background, and color hover. Okay, and these are the custom colors we actually need in our project. And then I'm going to go to the layout file, and then I'm going to add a background to this. I'll say bg background, which is coming from this right here, this custom color we have right here, color background. Because when we want to actually apply this in Tailwind CSS version 5, we don't have to call color, we just call the background, the name. Okay, we don't call the color before this hyphen background. So if you want to apply this primary, we say bg primary or text primary, just like that. I'll save that. Now we'll go back to our project, which will actually see the dark background being actually applied. Now, if yours is not applied, if the previous styles has been cached to your application, if you still have white background, what you're going to do is that you're going to go over to your project, you're going to delete this .NET file right here, and then you're going to run npm run dev or npm run dev again to run the application. Okay, because sometimes the styles that actually come with the default Next.js project actually cached to the browser. So the very first component we're going to create is going to be this navbar right here. It's going to have this logo right here, tech blog, and also these links and this login button right here. And it's also going to be fully responsive. So the very first thing we have to do, we have to create a new navbar component. So inside this src folder, I'm going to create a new folder. I call this folder components. Inside this components folder, I'm going to create a folder called general. And then inside this general folder, I'm just going to expand this a bit. I'm going to create a new folder called navbar. Because this is where we're going to place all the components associated with the navbar. And then inside this navbar folder, I'll create a component called navbar.tsx, like that. RFC. I will now have a navbar component. I just get rid of this import statement, and then inside the layout file, this is where we're actually going to export the navbar component. Remember I said that this root layout file, this is the root layout of this entire application. So whenever page we created, the contents of that page are going to be rendered in these children. Now we want this navbar to be accessible to all the page we created. We want all the pages to be able to access the navbar. We want the navbar present for every page we create. So we have to place the navbar in the root layout file. So right here, I want to call that navbar component like that. And then inside this navbar.tsx file, I'll get rid of this div. I'll just create a nav tag. I'll give this nav tag some Tailwind classes. I'll give it a height of 18 and a BG of red 700, so we can actually see this properly. So I want to head over to our project. We should actually see that navbar right here, that red navbar. So let's start adding content to the navbar. So I'll just get rid of this BG red of 700. We don't need this. I'll give this a position of fixed, a top of 0, a left of 0. We'll give this a z index of 50. And this navbar is actually going to be transparent because I'm not adding any background to it. So when a user scrolls, because this is going to be fixed at the top of the web page, when a user scrolls off the content, we actually want to apply something like a blur to it. In the final project, you're going to notice that when I scroll off the viewport, you can see that blur effect on the navbar. Okay, you can actually see that when the content is actually scrolling through the navbar, there's this blur effect on the navbar. You can still see the contents of the navbar. Okay, so that's actually what I want to apply. So I want to give this a backdrop. Sorry, spell that drop correctly. Blur of MD and a backdrop saturates of 50, like that. And that is going to actually do the trick. Inside this nav tag, we're going to create a div which we're going to give a Tailwind class of flex, items of center, justify of center, heights of full, a width of 90%, and MX of auto, like that. The very first item we're going to add is going to be a logo. So right here, I'm actually going to add the logo. So I'm going to create a new component for that. Inside this navbar, remember that I said that all the components for the navbar are going to be inside this navbar folder. So I'll create a new file called logo.tsx rfc. And this logo, get rid of this right here. You're just going to return a link. I'll get that from Next link. I'm going to import because when you want to make use of link in a Next.js project, you're going to get link from Next link. Okay, and then we have to pass in the href. Now, when a user clicks on the logo in the navbar, it doesn't matter the page the user is in. We just want to take the user to the root folder, which is going to be the home page. And then inside this link, I want to output a text called tech. I'm going to add a span. Inside this span, we're going to have blog. Okay, don't want any space between them. And then we can actually add some styles to this. First of all, I'm going to give the link some Tailwind classes, a text gray of 300, a font of bold, a text of XL. For medium screens and above, we're going to give it a text of 2XL. Then for large screens, I'll give it a text of 3XL, like that. And then for the span, I'll just give this a Tailwind class of text primary. Okay, now this text primary, remember, is coming from this custom color we have right here, text primary. I'll save that. Now, all we have to do is head over to our navbar and then we just call that logo component logo, just like that. Now, when I save this and head back to our project, we should actually see that logo right here. And now when we reduce the screen, you're going to notice that it's going to actually be fully responsive. It's going to actually look smaller for small screen devices. After the logo, we're going to create the nav links. So down here, I want to create another list. I'm going to give this a Tailwind class of flex, items of center, a gap of 4. For medium screens and above, we're going to give it a gap of 8. First gray of 400. And then we'll apply a font of semi-bold. Now in here, we're actually going to map through the list of items we're going to have, okay, for our nav links. So what we're going to do, we're going to create an array of nav links. So up here, I'll just close this side by a bit. So up here, I'm going to create an array. I'll say const nav links is going to be equals to an array of nav links. The very first object is going to have a key called URL, which the prop is going to be, the home page is going to be / and then it's going to have a label that is going to be home. And then just drag this down multiple times, 1, 2, and then we're going to have the next one is going to be / about, and this is going to lead the user to the about page. So I'm going to say the label is going to be about, and then we're also going to have an articles page. So up here I'm going to say we're going to take the user to the articles page. So I'll just label this articles. I think that's about it. I'll just get rid of this last one. So all we have to do is actually map through these nav links. So down here, I'm going to say nav links dot map. For every time we map through the nav link, we're going to call each of them a link, and then we're just going to return an li tag. We're going to actually pass in the key, which is going to be the link dot. Since the URL are actually unique, each URL are unique, you can use the URL as the key to the list. And then inside this li tag, I'm going to output a link, which we're going to get from next link. And the href of this link, the link is going to point to link.url. And then the label of the link is going to be link.label. I'll save that. Now we'll go back to our project, which will actually see these items right here, home articles and about, but they are too close to this one. I think that's because we gave this a justify of center. We want this to be justify of between. We want a space between the item. But it's still not applied. The items are not occupying the entire width. We gave these a width of 90%. Oh, we didn't give this a width of full. We want this to occupy the entire width of its container. That's going to ensure the navbar is going to occupy the entire width. Okay, we're going to give the width of full, while the container, the div inside the navbar is going to have a width of 90%. So there's going to actually add the login button, the search button, okay, because those ones are going to be buttons. They're not going to be links you can click on. It's going to take you to the next page. Okay, they're going to be buttons. So let's actually add them. First of all, I want to actually install another library. I want to install a library called React Icons. So I'm going to open up this terminal. I'm going to close up this terminal. I'm going to cancel this, and then down here I'm going to say pnpm install React Icons. I click on enter, and you can see right here that immediately how fast this actually installed. React Icons has been added to my package dependency, and you can see right here where we have downloaded is equals to 0. That's because I've actually downloaded React Icons in the previous project. So PnP is not actually going to install React Icons. It's going to create a symlink to that React icon I've already installed in my package, and this is going to make it faster for you to actually work with dependencies in your project. I'll head over to package.json. We actually see that we have React Icons added as one of our dependencies. Great job. So I'm going to run this project again. pnpm run dev, and then just refresh your application. So now we actually can make use of React Icons in this project. So before we map through these links, I want to create an li tag right here. Inside this li tag, I want to output an icon called search. I just get that from React Icons. Then for the size, I'm going to give it 25. And after that, I'm going to output a span tag, which in here is going to be search. Add some Tailwind classes to this list tag. I'll give it a Tailwind class of cursor, of pointer, display of flex, items of center, and a gap of 1. Like that. I'll save that, and we should actually see that right here. I'm also going to add some styles to this other li tag. I'll give it a Tailwind class. I want it to be hidden by default. Then for medium screens and above, I'll give it a display of block. And then when someone hovers on the link, I also give it a text gray of 200, like that. Now when we hover on the link, you can actually see that light color when we hover on them. Now for this search span tag, we don't want this to be visible for small screen device. So what we're going to do, give it a Tailwind class of hidden by default. Then for medium screens and above, give it a display of block. And then I'm just going to copy this list tag and drag this down. Then this one is going to be not search this time around, it's going to be right. And for the icon, it's not going to be search, it's going to be Lou pen or Lou notes book pen. I'll save that. I head back to our project, and we actually see that right here. We see the search, and we see the right, but this icon is too large. I'll just reduce this one from 25 to 20. That should look way better. Great job. And now when we take this to small screen device, you're going to notice that we no longer see the search and the right. We only see just the icon, the search icon and the right icon. Okay, this is going to look for mobile device, for small screen devices. And for small screen devices, we're not going to see all these links. These ones are only going to be available for the users when the user is viewing it. When the user is viewing the application on desktop. We're actually going to create the mobile menu later on. After this, we are mapping through these links right here. Down here, we're going to create another li tag that's going to have login right here. Okay, now this is going to display login or logout depending on if the user is logged in or if the user is logged out. But for now, we're just going to add code login. We'll give this some Tailwind classes, a BG of primary, a test grade of 200, px of 3 for large screens. We're going to give it a padding horizontal of 5, py of 2, rounded of full, and a cursor of pointer like that. And we should actually see that login button right here. And this is the login button the user is going to actually click on to open up the sign-in module. So next, we're going to create the navigation menu for mobile. So I'll create another component. Inside this, I'm just going to expand this all over again. Inside this Navbar folder, I'm going to create another component. Create a new component called mobile nav.tsx rfc. And then inside this navbar.tss file, we just call the mobile nav component like that. Now for the mobile navbar, it's going to be something like this. When we click on this menu, it's going to open up the navbar. You can actually see it right here. Okay, and then we'll click on it again. It's going to actually close it up, which means we're going to have an overlay. You can see right now there's an overlay on the entire web page, and then we're going to have the links right here. Let's actually work on that. I'm going to close this back up. I'm going to head to the mobile nav. I'll get rid of this. Now I'm going to create an empty fragment. Inside this empty fragment, we're going to have a div, which is going to be self-closing. Inside this div, we're going to add some Tailwind class. Because this is going to be the overlay. I'm going to pass dynamic styles to this. I'm going to use backticks beforehand. Give it a display of fixed, an insert of 0, a Z of 40, a BG black. Now reduce the transparency to 40%. Just do 60. And then we'll do a backdrop blur of XM, a transition for the opacity property, and a duration of 300. Okay, for when we actually add the transition. And then after that, we're going to create the mobile menu. This one right here is going to be the overlay. And then this one we're going to create is going to be the menu, okay, for small screen devices. And then down here, I'm going to create another list. I'll give this a Tailwind class. Now, this is also going to be dynamic, so I'm going to make use of backticks. We'll give it a position of fixed, a top of 20. I'll just do a top of 18 because I want this to start after the nav bar. Remember that the nav bar has a height of 18. So I want this to start after the nav bar. So I just do top of 18, which means it's going to start after the nav bar. A height of 0, z index of 50, a height of 80 vh, a width of full, a display of flex of column, items, center, justify, center, a gap of 10, BG secondary background. I'll reduce the transparency to 80, backdrop blur of XL, a border of top, border color of white. I'm going to reduce the opacity, the transparency to 10%, a transition of transform, duration of 500, and it's going to be ease in out like that. I'll save that, and then I'm going to save this too because I've actually imported that component right here. I'll save that. So now we'll go back to our project, which will actually see this right here. Okay, you can actually see that overlay on the web page. That is blur overlay on the web page. So I want to go back to the mobile nav component. Inside this another list we just started, I want to actually map through the links. Okay, now so what we're going to do is that we want to be able to make use of these links outside of this component. So what we're going to do is simply just going to export, just say export const nav links. That way we can be able to make use of that nav links array in here. I'm going to say nav links. I'm going to get that from our navbar component dot map. Every time we map through the nav link, we're going to call each of them a link, and then we're going to return a JSX. It's going to have a list tag in there, which the key is going to be link.url. And then inside this li tag, we're going to output a link tag, which we're going to get from next link. The href of the link is going to be link.url. The label of the link is going to be link.label. And then we have to pass in some classes to this. We give it a text of XL, a font of semi-bold, a tracking of wide, a text gray of 200, and over I want to have a text indigo of 400, and finally a transition of colors. Okay, I'll just format this to actually rearrange this a bit. I'll save that, and now we'll go over to our web page. You actually see those links right here. When we go to small screen device, you actually see those links right here. Great job. But we have one little issue. We don't want this mobile menu to be open for whatever reason for large screen devices. So what we're going to do is that inside this mobile menu, I'll just call this a div. We're going to add styles to this. Instead of using an empty fragment, I'll just say this is going to be a div. And then we can pass a Tailwind class to this. Then we're just going to say for medium screens and above, we want this to be hidden. I'll save that. Now we should not be able to see that. When we go to small screen device, we should be able to see it. Okay, it's only going to be visible when we are at medium screens and below. Okay, when we don't actually have these links right here, that's only when we should see the mobile links. Now after that, we don't want this for mobile devices. We don't want this to be open by default. We only want this to be open when a user clicks on that hamburger menu icon right here to open it up, and when the user clicks on it, it's going to close it back up. So to do that in React, we are going to actually make use of a state to actually track when the item is open and when the item is closed. So we're going to actually place that state inside this navbar, because this state is going to be placed inside this navbar. Then it's going to be passed to the child component, which is this mobile nav, which is a child of this navbar. Now, Next.js components are server components by default, and we can only make use of use states, use effects, and other React hooks inside of a client component, because they are basically client-side JavaScript. Okay, since this is a server component, when the page completely propagates, we cannot run client-side JavaScript. So we have to convert this to a client component. So after complete propagation, we can actually run client-side JavaScript. So to do that in Next.js, up here, we're going to say this is going to be a client component by using the directive from Next.js called use clients. Now we'll be able to run client-side JavaScript inside this component after complete propagation of the component. So up here, I'm going to create our first state. I'll say const menu open set menu open is going to be equals to use state from React. Now by default, this is going to be false, because by default we don't want the menu to be open, so it's going to be false. And now we can actually pass these two properties to the mobile nav as a prop. And now you are wondering, why didn't we just create this inside the mobile nav so we don't have to pass it as a prop? That's because we are going to have a button inside this nav bar right here to actually open the nav, the mobile nav. Okay, we're going to have that export in that hamburger button to actually open the nav. So we have to create the state in here and then pass the state as a prop. So I'll copy this right here, and I'm just going to paste that right here as a prop. And also I'm going to copy the setter function, which is this set menu open right here. I'm also going to pass it down here as a prop. Great job. And now we have to actually specify the types inside this mobile nav. Right now we're getting an error. So I'm going to go over to that mobile nav component. Up here, I'm going to create an interface. Up here, I'm going to say interface mobile nav props There's going to have a set menu open, which is going to be React.dispatch React.setStateAction boolean. And then we're going to have another public password called menu open, which is going to be boolean. And then right here you can see the props we want to destructure into this component are going to be of type mobile nav props. And then right here you can destructure the menu open and also the set menu open, just like that. And you can see we no longer have that TypeScript error in this Navbar components. I just format this because we've successfully actually handled the type in here. So inside this navbar.css file, just create that hamburger button. After this login button, I'll create another li tag right here, which I'm going to give a Tailwind class of cursor pointer. For medium screens and above, I want this to be hidden because I don't want this to be visible for large screens. I only want this button to be seen for small screen devices. So for screens that are greater than 768 pixels, it's going to have a display of none. And also I'll give it a Z index of 80, a Z of 80. And then in here, I want to check if menu is open. Then we want to actually render this icon right here. Liu X S. We want to render this icon. Liu menu, like that. I have to pass the question mark right here. Okay, so if menu is open, we want to render this component right here, this icon component. S, we want to render this other one. And then we're going to hook up an onClick event handler to this li tag right here. So when someone clicks on this li tag right here, I'll say onClick. I want to run an arrow function that's going to set menu open to the opposite value, menu open. So what this is basically going to do, if menu open is set to false, when we click on the button, it's going to set it to true. If it's true, when we click on the button, it's going to set it to false. It's basically going to toggle the state. So I'll just format this, save that. And now when we go back to the web page, when we go over here, when we click on this, it doesn't really do anything because we've now actually added the conditional styles to actually open and close these links right here. And I'll just increase the size of these icons right here. Let me quickly do that. Just give them a size of 20. Let me see how 20 looks. Actually descends to 25. Then also give this one a size of 25, like that. Yeah, this actually looks way better. So now we're going to go over to the mobile nav and conditionally add some styles to the overlay and the menu. For the overlay right here, I'm going to say if menu open, then I want to give this opacity of 100. S, I'll give it opacity of 0, and the pointer event of none. And then for this one, if menu is open, we'll give it a translate X of 0, S, it translates X of full. Save that. I'm going to test that again. And you can see when I click on this, it's going to open up. When I click on it again, it's going to close back up. Great job. And finally, what we want to do is that we're going to copy this set menu open, and then we're going to go to our link. When we click on this, because when we click on the set menu open for mobile devices, when we click on this right here, say we are in the home page and we'll click on articles. Since this mobile component, this Navbar component is inside the layout file, the component is not going to re-render, which means we're still going to have this menu open. This menu actually open when we go to the articles page. So what we want to do is that when we click on articles page, we want to actually close the menu open, close the menu. So we're going to say when we click on this link right here, on click, we want to run an arrow function. We'll fire an arrow function, we're going to set menu open to false. So we're basically going to close the menu after clicking on it. That way, when we go over here, when I click on home, you can see it's going to close up the menu. See that again, when I click on this, it's going to close up the menu. Great job. So with that, we are basically done with the Navbar. So next, we're going to work on the home page. Now for the home page, when a user lands on the home page, user is going to say this text right here: welcome to TechBlog, discover stories and creative ideas. A summary of the about page, and also the user is going to find the recent articles right here. Okay, so let's actually create the UI for this. So we're going to go to the page.css, which is going to act as our home page, because this is basically the home page of this application in Next.js. In here, I'm going to create a div. Get rid of this import statement for now. Now, whatever styles I apply to this div, I actually want to share these styles with the About Us page and the articles page. Okay, so basically what I want to do is I want to add some styles to it. So actually arrange the layout like a with pop thing. Okay, to actually give the page a structure. You can see right now that this page is right now, all of them are in the same line. Same thing when we go to the About page, they are in the same line. So we want to create something like a layout file. So let's actually do that. So I'm going to create a layout file. I'll just go to SRC. Inside this SRC folder, I'm going to create a folder called layouts. And inside this layouts folder, I'm going to create a file called container layouts.tsx rfc. And this layout is going to have access to a prop called children, which is going to be of type children. Is going to be of type react.react node, like that. And then in here, we're going to return a section. Then inside this section, we're just going to output the children. Then we're going to add some Tailwind classes to this. We'll give it a width of 90%. For large screens and above, extra large screens, we'll give it a width of 75%, MX of auto, and then we're going to give it a margin top of 30. And now I'm going to go to the page.tss file. Now, instead of using this div to wrap around everything in this page, I'm going to use the container layout file. Okay, and then in here, we can actually create a div tag. The contents we are adding are going to be rendered right here where we have these children. Okay, and they're going to be wrapped around by these tags we actually applied. First of all, I want to add a h1 tag, which is going to be that large text that the user is going to see when they actually land on the home page. I give this a Tailwind class of text of 3XL. For large screens, we're going to give it a text of 5XL. For extra large screens, we're going to give it a text of 7XL. A text of center, first gray of 200. A tracking of wide, leading of snug. And this leading of snug is basically the line height of the text. So for large screen, we'll give it a leading of tight. Save that. And then inside the h1 tag, we're going to have a span. We're going to output this text right here: welcome to TechBlog. And then we'll give this a Tailwind class of font of build. After that, we're going to have this text right here: discover stories and creative ideas. And then I'll just add a breaking tag right here. I'll save that. Now we should actually see that text right here: welcome to TechBlog, discover stories and creative ideas. After this h1 tag, I want to create another div. I'll give this div a Tailwind class of padding vertical of 12. For large screens, I'll give this a padding vertical of 24. And inside this div, I'll create another div. I give this div a Tailwind class of grid cores of 1. For large screens, we're going to give it a grid cores of 2, gap of 10. For large screens, we're going to give it a gap of 16. And finally, items of center, like that. Then the first thing we're going to add is going to be the image. So I can create a div for that. I'll give this a Tailwind class of relative. And I'm going to call an image tag, which I'm going to get from Next image, because I actually make use of image in Next.js. You're going to make use of the Next.js image component, which is going to help you to actually optimize your image. And SRC, the SRC is going to be // images. Now inside our public folder, we're going to have an images folder right here. It's going to have the images we actually want to use. Okay. Now if you want the exact image I'm using for this project, I'm going to leave them in the description below. Okay. You can actually find a link to the images or the assets you are using in the description below. Right here, the path to the image is going to be /images / Now the image you want for this about is going to be this one called about.png. So I'm going to say about.png like that, and then the alt text is going to be about image, and then you have to pass in a width and height. I'll give it a width of 600, height of 600, and then we're going to add some Tailwind classes to this. A rounded of 2XL, a border, and a border white. I'm going to use the transparency to about 10. I'm going to save that and actually check out the output, and we actually have the image right here. Okay, and it looks really good. So now we're just going to add that little glowing effect that's going to be at the back of the image, and this is going to be the glow. Now underneath here, I'll create a div. It's going to have a self-closing tag, and I'll give it some Tailwind classes. Position of absolute, negative insert of 0, not 0.4, bg indigo 500. I'll give it a transparency of 10, a blur of 3XL, and a negative z index of 10. I'll save that. I'll head back to the application. I actually see that glow at the back of the image. You can actually see that subtle glow at the back of the image. Great. Now after this div right here, I want to close this up. I want to create another div which is going to be for the contents. I'll create another div down here. This is going to have a Tailwind class of maximum width of XL. In here, I'm going to have a span. I'm going to have a Tailwind class of text of XM. I want all the text to have an uppercase. I'll give it an uppercase. A tracking of widest. Text indigo of 400. And then inside the span, we're simply going to have this text about tech blog. After this span, I'm going to create h3 tag. Inside the h3 tag, I'm going to output this right here, simple ways to innovate your inner creative mind. And then I'm going to add some Tailwind classes to this. Margin top of 3, a text of 2XL. For last screen, we're going to give it a text of 3XL. For extra last screen, we'll give it a text of 4XL. A font of semi-bold. A tracking of tight, and a text of white, like that. And finally, after this h3 tag, I'm going to have a paragraph tag. And this paragraph tag, I'm going to output a random text lorem, and then we'll give this a Tailwind class of margin top of 6, text gray 400, a leading of relaxed. I'll save that. We should actually see the content right here about tech blog. So next we just create the call to action button. After the paragraph tag, I'll just rearrange this a bit. After the paragraph tag, we'll create a div down here. Inside this div, we're gonna have a link. I'm gonna get link from next link. Then the href, this link is going to lead to / about. It's going to lead to the about page. We're gonna have a text index called learn more, and also we're gonna have an icon. Call the icon Lou arrow white. Give it a size of 15, and then I'm gonna add some Tailwind classes to this link. Give it a display of inline flex, items of center gap of 2, px of 7, py of 3, rounded of 4, bg secondary background. Okay, this bg secondary background is coming from this right here, this secondary background right here. Okay, bg secondary background. I give it a border and a border white, I'll use the transparency to about 10. First gray of 200, font of semi-bold. When it's hovered on, we want to give it a BG white of 10. I'll use the transparency to 10. A transition of colors, save that, and we should actually see that call to action button right here. Great, but it's too close to this content right here, so we're gonna add a, remember we had a div to wrap around the link, so we're gonna give this div a Tailwind class of margin top of 10. I'll save that. That should ensure that there's a margin between the button and this content right here. Okay, so with that, we've actually created this about container right here. Okay, now if the user wants to go to the about page, the user can click on this about right here on the navbar or click on learn more, and then we'll go to small screen device. Everything we've created so far is fully responsive and it looks really beautiful for small screen devices, for mobile devices too. So next, we're going to actually create the recent articles section. So for this, we have to create a new component. So I'm going to go to, I'll just close everything up. I'll go to SRC components. I'll create a new folder inside this component folder called home. And inside this home folder, I'm going to create a new component called recent post.tsx rfc. Then inside the page.tss file down here, I'm just going to call that component right here, recent post, like that. Then inside this recent post component, I'll just get rid of this text. Give this Tailwind class a space y of 2. Then I'm going to create a h2 tag. I'll give this h2 tag a Tailwind class of text of white, text of XL. For small screens and above, give it a text of 2XL. Then for medium screens and above, give it a text of 3XL and a font of spell that font correctly, a font of semi-bold. Inside this h2 tag, I'm simply just gonna have this text recent post, like that. Save that. And we'll scroll down, we should actually see that text right here, recent post. So after that, I'm going to create our recent articles card. So I'll create a div down here. I'll just label it. I'll say this is going to be the recent post cards. Then I'll give this div a Tailwind class of grid, a grid cause of 1. For medium screens and above, give it a grid cause of 2. Then for large screens and above, give it a grid cause of 3, and then a gap of 6, like that. Now we're going to be mapping through the list of items for the cards, okay? Because when we start working on the back end, we're going to be pulling this data from the database. Okay, so for now, we're going to make use of data we're going to hard code inside this component. So up here, I'll just paste this right here. Okay, now we have this array of posts, which has 3 post objects in here: post 1, post 2, and post 3. For now, since we're not actually integrating back into this project, we're going to map through the list of this array right here as our post, as our dummy post. So in here, I'm going to say post.map. For every time we map through a post, we're going to call it a post, and then we're going to return a JXS. It's going to have a div in there, which is going to have a key that's going to be post.id. Give it a Tailwind class, give it a group property, a rounded of XL, overflow of hidden, a BG. I'm going to use this hex color. I'm going to give it a border and also a border of white. Reduce the transparency to 10. Transition of all, a duration of 300. Then when someone hovers on this card, give it a negative translate y of 1. And then on hover, I'll give it a border white. Reduce the transparency to 20. And then inside this card, the first thing we're going to export is going to be the image. So in here, we're going to create a div we're going to give this div a Tailwind class of relative, height of 48, width of full, overflow of hidden. And then inside this div, we're going to call an image tag, an image component from next image. The src is going to be post dot image. The auth test is going to be post dot title. Add some Tailwind classes to this image. Object of cover, transition of transform, duration of 500, a group over of scale 105. I'll save that. Now this group over right here is the reason why we give the container that wraps around it a group. Okay, so what's gonna happen is that when we hover on the card, these styles are going to be applied to this right here. Okay, so when we hover on the group, then on group hover is going to have a scale of 105. It's going to actually zoom out a bit. Let's actually go and check it out. And we have an error. It says image with src is missing a required width pop. Now when you actually make use of the Next.js image components to actually render your image, you have to pass a width and height pop. Now since the container, this div that wraps around this image, already has a width and height property, we're just going to give the image a fill property to tell the image to fill the entire container. I'll save that. That should actually get rid of that error. Great job. And we actually see the images right here. And you can see when we hover on the image, it actually zooms out. So after this image tag, I'm going to create a div which is going to be a self-closing tag. I give this a Tailwind class of absolute, insert of 0, and a bg of black. Reduce the transparency to 30. I'll save that. And we should actually see that overlay on the image. Okay, that little black overlay. When we actually increase the transparency to about 90, you notice that it's going to be actually be more obvious. Great. So after the div for this image, after the div that wraps around the image, I'll create another div. And this div is going to be for the contents of the card, the other contents. I'll create another div down here. I'll give this div a Tailwind class of padding of 5, a space y of 3, and then inside this div, we'll make use of a time tag. I'll get rid of this date time. I'll give this a Tailwind class of text of xx, first gray of 400, and then in here I'm going to output the post dot, I think the post dot date, yeah, it's post dot the date. Just format this to actually rearrange the code base a bit. After this time right here, we're going to create a h3 tag which is going to output the post dot title. I'll give this some Tailwind classes, text of LG, font of semi-bold, text of white, leading of snug, group over when the card is hovered on, so do a group hover. I'll give it a text indigo of 400 and a transition of colors. I'll save that. Now we'll go back to the card. When we actually hover on the card, you can see that the image zooms out and the H2 tags actually kind of indigo in color. Okay, you can actually see that little over effect right there. After this H3 tag, I'm going to output a paragraph tag. It's going to output the post.except. Then I'll give this some Tailwind classes, a text of xm, a text gray 400, a leading of relaxed, a line clamp of 3. Now what this line clamp is going to do is that when I'll just go back to the web page, when the text actually overflows, you can see right now we have this very long text right here. Now if I increase the length of the text, if I add more text to this, I'll just copy this and actually add more text to this. I'll paste that right here. we're going to notice that the text is actually going to clamp right here. Okay, so we want only 3 lines. After 3 lines, if there's still text, if the exempt is still long, we just want to cut it off and show these ellipses right here. Okay, so that's the line clamp we're actually adding. Then after this paragraph tag, I'm going to output a link, which I'm going to get from next link. The href is going to point to /articles /dynamic is going to be post dot the slug of the post. There are some Tailwind classes to this. I'll give it an inline block, text of XM, font of medium, text indigo 400, on hover, I'll give it an underline. And then inside the link, we're just gonna have this text in there with article with this arrow right here. I'll save that, go back to the web page, and we actually have the read article right here. It looks really, really good. I'll just add a margin bottom to this container right here. So up here, where we have this container right here, I'll just give this a margin bottom of 10. Save that. I should ensure that there's a margin at the bottom of this card right here. So with this, I'm basically done with the home page. So then we're going to create the about page. Okay, the very first thing we have to do, we have to create a new page. So to do that in Next.js, we're going to go to shousing. Inside this app folder, to create a new page, we're going to have to create a new folder. Okay, so the name of the folder is going to be the name of the route. So we want to create an about page. So the name of this folder is going to be about. And inside this folder, we're going to create a page.tsx file, RFC. And then we're just going to rename this component about page. Sorry, spell that correctly. About page, like that. And I will click on this right here. Click on about. It's going to bring us right here to the about page. Now, due to the fact that we have this Navbar in the layout file, remember I said that whatever page we created, the contents that are inside this layout file are going to be rendered in this page. Since we have this Navbar in the layout file, we're also going to see this Navbar in the about page. Great job. So the very first thing we're going to do inside this about page, we're going to just get rid of this. We're going to call the container layout we created. And then in here, we'll create a div, which we're going to give a Tailwind class. We'll give this a px of 4, then for small screens and above, we'll give it a px of 12. After that, we're going to create the header or the heading. For that, I'll create a div down here. I'll give this div a Tailwind class of text of center margin bottom of 16. And after that, I'm going to output a shrunk tag, which I'm going to give a Tailwind class of text 3xl. For small screens and above, we'll give it a text of 4xl. For large screens and above, we'll give it a text of 5xl. A font of bold, a text of white, margin bottom of 4. And inside this h1 tag, I'm going to output about text block like that. And after this h1 tag, I'm going to output a paragraph tag. We're going to have this right here, and then I'll give these some Tailwind classes. Give it a text gray of 400, a maximum width of 2xl, mx of auto, and a leading of relaxed. I'll save that. And we actually see that right here, a part text block, and then we have the paragraph tag right here. Now after this div for the heading, I'm going to create another div for the contents. I'll say content. Create another div down here. I give this a Tailwind class of space y of 40. Now the about page, after this right here, we're going to have 3 sections. We're going to have this first section, this section, then we're going to have this last section. Okay, so we're going to basically have 1, 2, and 3 sections. So for the very first section right here, I'm going to say section 1. I create a div down here. I give this div a Tailwind class of grid cause of 1. For medium screens and above, give it a grid cause. Sorry, spell that grid correct. A grid cause of 2, a gap of 10 items of center. Inside this div, very first item I'm going to add is going to be the image. Get this image from next image, and then I want to pass an src. The src is going to point to an image inside the public folder /images / is going to point to this image right here, about.png, about.png, and then the auth there is going to be about image. The width is going to be 600, the height is going to be 600, and then I'm going to add some Tailwind classes to this. Rounded of 2xl, an object of cover. Then after the image, I'm going to create a div for the contents of this section. Inside this div, we're going to have a h2 tag. I'm going to output where tech blog. I'll give this some Tailwind classes. Text of 2xl, font semi-bold, text gray of 200, and a margin bottom of 4. After this h2 tag, I'm going to create a paragraph tag. I'm going to output this right here. I'm going to give this a Tailwind class of text gray 400 and a leading of relaxed, like that. Save that, and we should actually see that right here, and we don't see the paragraph tag. Oh, I didn't spell text gray correctly. Text gray of 400, and we actually see the paragraph tag. We actually see the image. After that, we're going to create the next section. It's going to be the second section of this about page, section 2. So then you'll create a div. I'm going to give this div a Tailwind class of bj secondary background, which is coming from one of our custom colors. Rounded of 2xl, a padding of 8. I'll give it a border, and then the border is going to be of border white, and I'll give the transparency to 10. Then inside this div, we have a h2 tag. We're going to output this, and then we're going to give this some Tailwind classes. A text of 2xl, a font of semi-bold, text gray of 200, and a margin bottom of 4. And then after this h2 tag, I'm going to create an on that list, which I'll give a Tailwind class of space y of 3, text gray of 400. I'm just going to paste the list tags right here to actually save time. We have the first LI, modern web technologies and frameworks. The next one, frontend development with React, Next.js, Tailwind CSS. Then the third one, backend tools, APIs, application architecture. And then the last one, practical guides and insights for web developers. I'll save that, and we should be able to see that in the web page. You actually see that section right here. So after this div, we're going to create the last section, which is section 3. So down here, I'm going to see section 3. Create a div down here. It gives this a Tailwind class of text of center. Then in here, we'll create a h2 tag. I'm going to output this right here, built for developers. Then we have some Tailwind classes to this. A text of 2xl, a font of semi-bold, text gray of 200, and margin bottom of 4. After this h2 tag, we'll create a paragraph tag. I'm going to output this right here. I'll give this paragraph tag some Tailwind classes. I'll give it a text gray of 400, a maximum width of 2xl, mx of auto, a leading of relaxed, and a margin bottom of 8. And then finally, after this paragraph tag, we're going to have a link tag, which we're going to get from next link. And the href is going to be /articles. Okay, so when someone clicks on this link, it's going to take them to the articles page, and then right here we're going to say explore. I gave you some Tailwind classes. I'll just paste the stats right here to save time. We have the the styles we're actually applying to this button: inline flex, item center, justify center, padding horizontal of 6, padding vertical of 3, rounded 4, BG indigo 600 and over, BG indigo of 500, transition of colors, text white, and the font of semi-bold. I'll save that, and we should actually see that button right here, explore. So now we have the about page, so let's actually work on this white page right here. Okay, and for the white page, it's going to be very straightforward. We're gonna have this input right here to write a new article, this one for the XMP, this one to actually select a cover image, then we're gonna add this text editor right here. Okay. The very first thing we have to do, we're going to create a new page. Remember, to create a new page, just go to app folder, then call the name of the page, create a folder and call it white. Then inside this white folder, we're going to create a page.tsx like that, RFC, and I'll just call this white page like that. I'll just get rid of this. Now this page is simply going to return a section. I'm not going to make use of that layout right here. It's going to return a section. I'll give this section a Tailwind class, maximum width of 3XL, MX of auto, PY of 20, and padding vertical of 20, and the padding horizontal of 6 like that. And the very first thing we have to create the page title. So for that, I'm going to use a h1 tag, which is going to output this right here, write a new article. I'll give this a Tailwind class, text of 3XL, a font of bold, text of white, and a margin bottom of thin. I'll save that. Now let's actually visit the right page. So I'll just go to right. Oh, I just remember that we didn't actually pass a href to this. So we have to go to the Navbar, go to SRC, components, general, navbar.tx. Now where we have that right, instead of having this inside an li tag, we're going to actually place them inside a link tag. Just place them right here, and then the href of this link tag is going to point to /right like that. And now when we actually over on this, we actually see the right link now, but now the link is actually now weird. So what I'm going to do, I'll just take off these styles from the li tag, and then I'll place the styles on the link tag itself. Okay, I should actually ensure that the flex properties are applied to it. So now when we click on this, it's going to take us to the right page, and we actually see that title right here, write a new article. So now I'll go back to the right page. After this h1 tag, we're going to create a form tag. Get rid of this action, we're not going to need this. Now inside this form tag, we're going to create the first input. It's going to be of type text. The placeholder is going to be article title, and then I'm going to give this some Tailwind classes. Give this a width of full, a BG of transparent, a text of 4XL, font of bold, text of white, placeholder, that is the text of a placeholder, gray of 400, I'll just do 500, outline of none, and a margin bottom of 6. I'll save that, and we should actually see that input right here. Great. So we'll create the next one, and this first one is for the title. The next one is going to be for the except. So now you're going to create a test area. That's going to be a self-closing tag. I'll give it a placeholder of write a short except 1 to 2 sentences. After that, I want the rows to be 3. I want 3 rows, and then I have some Tailwind classes to this. And this is going to be very long, so I'll just paste the styles right here to actually save some time. And then when we save that and go back to the web page, we actually see that text area right here. So next, after that, we're going to create a div. This one is going to be for the image upload, the cover image upload inputs. First of all, I'll give this div a Tailwind class of margin bottom of 10, And then in here, first of all, create a label. We should give a Tailwind class of block, a first GUI of 400, and a margin bottom of 2. Then I'll just call this cover image like that. After that, we're going to have an input. It's going to be of type file. We're going to accept only image extensions, and then I'll give this some Tailwind classes. And the Tailwind classes are also long, so I'll just paste them right here too. You can see what we're applying. We're giving it a display of block, a width of full, text of XM, text width 400. Then we're actually styling the input, the HTML input element. So I'll save that, and when we go back to the web page, you actually see that file input right here. For the next input, you have to install a library called Judith Editor. So I'm going to open up this terminal right here. I'll just stop this. I'll stop this server. Then right here, I'm going to say pnpm install Judith React. I click on enter. And that should actually install the Judith React library for us, so we can actually make use of it in our project. So the very first thing we have to do, we're going to convert this to a client component because we cannot make use of Judith in a server component. So up here, I'm going to make use of the use client directive from Next.js. I'll say use client like that. And then I'm going to import dynamic from Next.js. I'll say import dynamic because I only want to import these when the component actually renders. Okay, so when we actually start running client-side JavaScript, I'm going to import dynamic from Next dynamic. And then down here, I'm going to say const Judith editor. It's going to be equals to, I'm going to call the dynamic. And then we're going to import Judith React. And then we have to pass in a configuration that we want SSRO as false. Okay, we don't want any server-side rendering for this we don't want this Judith editor we're importing to be rendered on the server. Okay, so we only want this to be imported when the client-side propagation is actually complete. So when we're actually running client-side JavaScript, that's why we're using the dynamic from Next dynamic. So next, what I'm going to do, I want to go to npm package manager so you can actually see what we have to do to actually make use of this Judith editor in our project. So I just search for Judith React npm like that. That should bring us right here. I'll actually see that right, Judith React npm. I'll click on that. And it's going to bring us right here to npm. And then I'll just go to the readme. I'll actually see after installing, what we have to do next. We have to actually, if you are using Next.js, we have to actually do that dynamic import. But this is actually doing the implementation for React. That's why they're not doing that dynamic import. And then we have to do const editor. We just copy this there here, copy this right here. Then I'll paste that up here. I'm going to get use ref from the React library. I also get use state from the React library. And next we have to create a function. So I'll just copy this and I'll paste that right here. Okay. Now for this placeholder, I'm just going to get rid of this. This placeholder is going to be start writing your article ... Then we're going to import use memo from the React library. We'll get rid of this placeholder. Okay. And then we can get rid of this read only to false. This read only false. We're going to set the theme to dark. And then after that, I'm going to add some styles to it. So I'll say style. I give it a background of hash 121212, and then I'll give it a color of this hex color right here. And then I'm going to scroll down, actually output that Judith editor to the UI. So right here, I'm going to say it's going to be the editor as a text editor, whatever you want to call it. And then we can output the editor to the UI. So I'll just copy this one we created, this instance we created. I'll just make this a capital case because we're going to make use of this as a component. So use capital case in uppercase. Then I'll just paste that instance right here. I'll wrap a div around this. I'll give this div some Tailwind classes. A rounded of 2xl overflow of hidden. Give it a border, and then I'll give it a border white. I'll reduce the transparency to about 10. And then inside this Judith editor, I'll say the ref is going to be editor. Okay, that's that ref. This ref we just created up here. This ref, that's going to be the ref. And then after that, we're going to see the value is going to be the content state we have up there. It's going to be content. As this content state we created right here. And then config is going to be equal to the config we created up there. These configurations we created up here, that's going to be configurations. And finally, on change, we're actually going to handle when someone types on this Judith editor, we're actually handle the change. We'll find an arrow function. It's going to take an argument called new content. And then we're going to set content to new content like that. So basically what's going to happen is that anytime we type in this Judith editor, this content state is going to be updated. I'll save that. Now remember we actually cancelled our terminal, so I have to start that over again. So down here I want to say pm run dev like that. And then I just refresh the web page and we actually see that text editor right here. You can actually type on it. Great job. You can select a heading tag and you can see right now we are actually in a h1 tag. So anything we type right here might not actually display it, but it's actually a h1 tag. After this div right here, I'll create a button which is going to say publish. Give this a Tailwind class. Px of c is py of 3, rounded of full, a bg of primary, cursor of pointer, text of white, a font of semi-bold, finally transition of colors. I'll save that and we should actually see the button right here, publish, but it's too close to this editor, so I'll give this editor a margin bottom. I'll do a margin bottom of 10 to add a margin between it and the button right here. Great job. You actually see that publish button right here. I actually want this button to be here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this in a div. So I'll just cut this off. I'm going to wrap this in a div container, which I'm going to give this div a Tailwind class of flex and a justify of end. I'll save that, and that should ensure that we have this button at the end right here, not at the beginning. So with that, we are done creating the white page. So next, let's actually work on the articles page. So I'll create a new page. Close this up. I'll go to SRC app. I'll create a new page. So to do that, I'll create a new folder called articles. And inside this articles folder, I want to create a new file, page.tsx, like that, rfc, and then we're going to call this the articles page, like that. Now in here, we're just simply going to return we're going to make use of our container layout right here. In here, we're going to create a div and we're going to give a Tailwind class space y of 6. And inside this div tag, we're going to create a h2 tag. It's going to add both all articles, and we'll give this a Tailwind class of text of xl. For small screens and above, we'll give it a text of 2xl. For medium screens and above, we'll give it a text of 3xl, a text of white, and a font of semi-bold, like that. And then for the cards, it's simply going to be the same thing we are doing for the recent project. The UI is going to be similar, but when we are pulling the data from the backend, the data are going to be different. Okay, this is going to be all the articles, while the one in the home page is going to be the recent articles. So I'm just going to copy that. I go to SRC components, then go to home, then go to recent project. I'll just copy this right here, and then I'll just paste that right here. And then all we just have to do is get this next image and also get this link from next link. And also we have to actually get this post. Remember that this post array is not actually in here. So to actually do that, we're just going to go over to that recent post component. And then we're just going to export that post array. So we're already exporting that actually. So we're just going to import that in here. Import that in here. Okay, great, save that. And now when we just go to the articles page, we should actually see that right here. And it's a page cannot be found 404. Why is that? Oh, we didn't spell the articles correctly in our navbar. So I'll go to the navbar, go to general, I'll go to navbar. Didn't spell that, it's going to be articles. Save that. Test that again. I'll click on articles. It's going to bring us to the articles page. You already see that here, all articles. So I'll go back to the articles page. After where we are mapping through this div, after this div, we'll create another div. Give this a Tailwind class of flex, justify, of center, and a margin top of thin. And then in here, we're actually going to output a button, and this is going to be the load more button. So actually, that we're going to actually use to implement our pagination. So I'm going to add a Tailwind class to this. And the styles are pretty long, so I just paste them right here. We have a px of 8, padding horizontal of 8, py of 300 of pg or secondary background, text grid 300. And we actually see all the styles we're applying to this button right here. I'll save that, and we should actually see that button right here. I have not actually added any text to the button. The label is simply going to be load more articles, like that. I actually see the button right here. Great job. So next, what we want to work on is that we want to create the post view page. So when a user clicks on a post, you can actually view the post. For now, this is going to be static data, but when we work on the back end, when we click on a post, we can actually view that post in the post view page. Now the articles page is going to be dynamic right here. In the finished project, you can see right now we have 3 posts right here. Now when we click on this post right here, is PHP really dead or is it a myth? When I click on this, you can see that actually opens up. You actually see that post right here. Same thing, if I click on this, is Next.js the future of web development? You're actually going to see that right here. Now the route is going to be dynamic, and the content of the route is going to be based on the slug of that post. Okay, so we're going to use the slug of that post to fetch the data to actually view the post. So the route is going to be dynamic. I want to hover on this right here. You can see the slug right here. I also want to hover on this, you can see the route, see this slug. I want to hover on this, you can actually see this slug down here. So to actually create a dynamic route in Next.js, what we're going to do, go to SRC app. Here we have this articles folder right here. We're going to say, we'll create a folder, and this folder we're going to call, inside this folder, we'll make use of a square bracket, and we'll call slug, okay? Which means this is going to be the dynamic parameter we are getting from the URL. And then inside this folder, we'll create a page.tsx like that. RFC. I want to call this post view page or article view page or blog view page or whatever you want to call it. And then in here, we're not going to return a div. We're going to make use of this tag right here, the article tag from HTML. Okay, we're going to return an article. Give this a Tailwind class of maximum weight of 3xl, mx of auto, py of 20, and a padding horizontal of 6 like that. And after that, I'm going to create the article header. So then I'm going to create a header tag, which is going to have a h1 tag that's going to output this right here. I give this header tag a Tailwind class of margin bottom of 10. And inside this header tag, we're going to have a h1 tag that's going to output this right here, building a medium style blog with Next.js. Now we are basically just hard coding this for now. When we start working on the back end, this is going to be dynamic. It's going to be put from the database. I'll give this a Tailwind class of text of 3xl, small screens and above. I'll give it a text of 4xl. For large screens, I'll give it a text of 5xl. A font of bold, a text of white, a leading of tight, and a margin bottom of 4. After this h1 tag, inside this header tag, create a div which will give a Tailwind class of flex, items of center, gap of 4, text of XM, the first gray of 400. And in here, I'm going to output this right here. 3 span by Egbo Emmanuel, this dot right here, also this other span right here, the date of when the post was created. Okay, so for now, we're going to outcode these details. So I'll just format this. I'm going to save this. Let's actually view this. So I'm going to go to our project. I'm going to click on this right here. I'll click on this. And we're actually in the post view page. After this header right here, I'm just going to close this up. I'm going to create a div for the cover image. Give this div a Tailwind class of relative, width of full, height of 55. For small screens and above, give it a height of 80. For large screens and above, give it a height of 105. And finally, margin bottom of 12. And then inside this div, we're going to output an image tag from next image, which we're going to get from next image. And then the src. For now, we're just going to make use of a random image from our public folder. So images /p1.jpg. The hot text is going to be cover image. Give it a Tailwind class of object cover rounded of 2xl. And finally, we'll give it a fill property to fill its entire container. Save that, and we should actually see the image. And the image is not actually loaded in src images p1.jpg. Oh, it's going to be p1.png, not jpeg. The image is in png format. Yeah, I actually see the image right here. So after this image, we're going to create another div for the article content. So say article content. So now I create a div. I give this div some Tailwind classes. I give it a maximum width of none, a first gray of 400, leading of relaxed, and a tracking of wide. And I'm gonna have a paragraph tag. I'll just output a random text right here, which I'll give a Tailwind class margin bottom of 6. I'll just output like 3 more, 1, 2. I'll save that, and we should actually see that in the UI right here. After this, we're going to create a divider which is going to be a self-closing div tag. I'll give this some Tailwind classes. We'll give it a border top, a border white, and reduce the transparency to 10, and then a margin vertical of 16. Now after this divider, we're going to have a div that we're going to give a Tailwind class of flex items of center and a gap of 2. After that, we're going to have a link tag. We'll get that from next link, and the href is going to point to. For now, we're just going to leave that as hash. So we're going to update this later on. So I'll give this a Tailwind class. I'll just paste this title right here. Okay, and inside this link, we're going to output an icon called Lupin. I'll get that from React Icons, and then it's going to be edit. I'll save that. I'll check out the output, and we should actually see that edit button right here. But I don't want it to be here. I want the action buttons to be on the right hand side. So I'm going to give them a justify. I'll give them end. That way, both the edit button and delete button we're going to create are going to be on the right hand side right here. And then after that, I'm going to create the delete button. So I'll call a button tag, and this is going to be of type button. Then I'll give it a Tailwind class. I'll just paste the styles right here. And the styles are actually long. That's going to take me a whole lot of time to actually write these styles, even for the edit button. So you can actually see the styles right here. And then we're just going to call an icon right here, low trash. Get that from React Icons, and then you're going to have the delete right here. I'll save that. And we'll go back to our project to actually see these 2 action buttons, the edit button and the delete button. Okay, so when a user wants to edit their blog post, if they are logged in, because users will be able to see this action button if if it's actually their own article they actually created, else they're not going to see these action buttons right here. So finally, after these two buttons, I'll just close up this div. I'll create another div. And this div is going to have a Tailwind class of margin top of 16. And then inside this div, we're going to have a link tag. We're going to have a href or /articles. Okay, this is actually to go back to the articles page. And then in here, let's even just add both back to all articles. So I'll give this some Tailwind classes. A text indigo of 400 and over do a text indigo of 300 and a transition of colors. I'll save that and we'll go back to the project. We actually see that link right here, back to our articles. I won't click on this. It's going to make us back to the articles page, and then we can actually click on another one. It's going to make us back to the post view page. So now we are done with all the pages. We've created the right page, the home page, the articles page, the about page. So now let's actually create the footer. So to do that, I'll create a new component or SRC. Inside this general component, I'll create a component called footer.tsx rfc. Get rid of this import up here, and this is going to return a footer tag. We're going to add some Tailwind classes to this footer. I'll give it a border of top, a border white, and then we'll reduce the transparency to 10, and a margin top of 24. Then inside this footer tag, we're going to create a div which is going to have some Tailwind classes, a maximum width of 7XL, mx of auto, px of 6, py of 10, display of flex, a flex of column, for small screens and above, a flex of row, items of center, justify of between, and a gap of 4, like that. And then inside this div, we're going to have a paragraph tag. Give this paragraph tag some Tailwind classes. Give it a text of XM and a text gray of 400. And then inside this paragraph tag, we're going to say ampersand copy. We use HTML entity for the copy symbol. And then we're going to use client-side JavaScript to actually get the comment here. So say new date dot get full year. And after that, we can simply say tech blog or white reserved. Now, since we are making use of client-side JavaScript inside this component, we have to make this a client component. So up here, I'm going to say use client. I'll save that. Now, obviously, when we go back to our web page, we're not going to see any footer. Okay, even when we go to the home page, we're not going to see any footer. So what we're going to do is that we'll go to the root layout file. We're going to go over to SRC layouts and go to app, then we'll go to the root layout file. So underneath this children, we're going to call the footer. Okay, so it's going to be displayed underneath all the pages. So I'll save that, and we should actually see that footer down here. Okay, we actually see that copyright 2026, the comment here, tech blog or white reserved. Now after this paragraph tag in this footer, we're going to create a div which will give a Tailwind class of flex, items, center, a gap of 6, and a text of XM, like that. And then inside this div, we're going to create a link tag which I'm going to get from next link. The href of this particular one is going to go to the root folder, which is going to be the home page, and then inside here we can say home, and there are some Tailwind classes to this. We do a test gray of 400, then on hover we do a text of white, like that, and then we'll give this a transition of colors. So I'll just copy this, I'll drag this down multiple times, 1, 2. This second one is going to be / about, and then the label is going to be about. And finally, the last one is going to be articles. Then the label is going to be, articles, like that. Just format this page. Great, I'll save that. And we should actually see those links right here: home, about, and articles. So we have the footer. When we go to the about page, we should be able to see the footer right here, okay, because we placed it in a layout file. We can actually click on the links in the footer to actually navigate to, and go to the articles page and go to the about page. Great job. So next, we're going to start working on the modal. So we're going to have two modals. We're going to have the search mode, and we'll click on this search. It's going to open up the search mode, and we can actually search for post. And also we're going to have the login mode, where user can actually click on either the continue with Google button or the continue with GitHub button. Now, the very first thing we have to do, we have to install a library called Zustand. Now, when you check out this project, you're going to notice that this search right here, this search button, this login button, these buttons are inside of this Navbar component, but they will be able to open this modal regardless of the page. Okay, so it doesn't matter the page we are in, we'll be able to see the modal. So to do that in a React application, we need to make use of global state. And there are different ways for us to handle global state. We can use Modals toolkit, we can use the built-in method, which is the context API. But for this tutorial, I'm going to make use of Zustand. So I'm going to install that library. So I'll open up my terminal. I'll just cancel this for now. Then I'll say pnpm install Zustand. Click on enter. You can see right here, added one. It's going to add Zustand as a dependency to our project. And when we head over to package.json, we should actually see Zustand right here, version 5.0.9. So the first thing we have to do, we have to create a new component. So I'll go to src component. I'll create a new folder called Modals. And inside this Modals folder, I'll create a component called modal.tsx, like that. RFC. Now we are going to be needing the global state inside of this modal component. So let's actually create them. So I'll just close this. I'll go to src. And inside this src folder, I'm going to create a folder called store. And inside this store folder, I'll create a file called use modal store.tx. First of all, we're going to create some interface. So I'll say interface modal state. We're going to have is sign in open, which is going to be a boolean. To know if the sign-in modal is actually open, we have the is search modal or search open is also going to be boolean. Then we're going to have open sign in. It's going to be a function that is going to return void. And then we're going to have close sign in, also going to be an arrow function that's going to return void. Okay, now when we say the function is going to return void, which means the function is not going to return anything. Okay, and then we have the function to open search, which is also going to return void, and we also have the function to close search, which is also going to return void. And then we're going to have a function to globally close all the modals. Okay, if you want to actually do that, it's going to be close all, which is also going to be a function that's going to return void. So now we have our interface, our TypeScript types for all the methods and properties we want to create in the store. So down here, I'm going to say export const use modal store. It's going to be equals to, I'm going to call create from Zustand, call the create method from Zustand, pass in a set, and now we have to actually specify the type. So I'll say this is going to be of type, this type created up here is going to be of type modal state. And now we have to pass in all the properties. First of all, we're going to have a sign in open or a search open. By default, they are going to be false. Is sign in open is also going to be false by default. Now, what we are basically doing here is we are basically doing the same thing we were doing when we were making use of the use state hook, where we are going to set a state. We set it to if it's boolean, false or true by default, or if it's a string, an empty string by default. And then as we progress with the application or when we perform an action, we can actually update the state. So basically, we are doing the same thing right here. But the difference is that the use state hook is a component-based state, which means when we create a state in the use vet hook, we can only use it within the component, or if it's a parent component that has a child, you can pass it as a prop to the child component, but we cannot make use of it globally in the entire application. That's why we are making use of Zostan. We are still setting state, but this state right here that we have right here, we'll be able to use this state globally in anywhere in our application. And then we're going to have a function called open sign in. There's going to be an out function. It's going to set this is sign in to true. Is sign in. It's going to set it to true, and then she's going to set the search modal, search open, to false. And then we have another function called close sign in, which is going to actually set a sign in open to false. Then after that, we're going to have the open search. We're going to find an arrow function that is going to run. That's going to set a search open to true, and it is set is signing open to false. And then also we're going to have the close search function. It's going to run an arrow function that is going to set a search modal open, a search open to false. And finally, we're going to have the close all function, which is going to actually set a search open to false, and also it's going to set is signing open to false too. So I'll just format this. So now we have the state, the global state we need, the is signing open, is search open, and also the functions to open the sign-in, close the sign-in modal, open the search modal, close the search modal, and the function if you want to close both of them. If you want to close both of them, a function to close both of them, which is a close off function. So we've created our use modal store. Okay, so now we're going to head over to our modal. Now, anytime this modal is called, because this modal is going to be reusable, with the search modal and the sign-in modal, the contents are going to be rendered based on the props we pass to this modal, this reusable modal. So we have to pass in the type of data we want this modal to actually expect. Okay, so up here, say interface modal props. It's going to have a state called is open, which is going to be boolean. It's going to have an on close. It's going to be a function that is going to return void, and then it's going to have a children that's going to be of type react node, because this mode is going to be wrapping around the contents of the search and the signing content. Okay, the signing modal content. So the children, the contents are going to be of type react node. And then right here we can say specify the type of the props, which is going to be of type modal props, and then we can destructure add the is open, the structure add the on close, and also the structure add the children, like that. And then this modal is going to return a div. We give this div an area hidden that's going to be equals to is open. It's not is open. Okay, so when the is open is false, if the is open is false, if the is open is false, we want this modal to be hidden areally. Okay, and also pass some dynamic classes to this modal right here. we use backticks, so we can make use of template trans. We do fixed, insert, 0, flex, items, center, justify, center, a px of 4, a transition of opacity, a duration of 700. Then I'm going to add some dynamic styles to this. So if it's open, I'll give this an opacity of 100, s opacity of 0, and a pointer events of none, like that. Then after that, I'm going to add a back dop. So down here, I'll create a div that's going to be a self-closing tag. Now, this div, I'm going to add a event handler to the on-click event handler to this. That's going to fire the on-close function we are passing as a prop. Now, the reason I'm doing this is that when we go to the finished project, when we click on this login, you can see the modal actually pops up. Now, we don't have to click on this cancel. If you can click on this cancel to actually close the modal, but also when we click off, when we click at the body, this overlay right here, when we click on that, it's actually going to close the modal. So now we are adding an event handler to the body too. So as long as it's outside of the modal, as long as we click outside of the modal, we can actually close the modal. That's why we are adding this on close to the backdrop. After that, add some Tailwind classes to this. We're going to make use of backticks because we want to add dynamic styles. Give it a position of absolute, insert 0. I didn't give this a z-ness. I want this to overlap all the contents in the web page, so I'll give it a z of 50. I give this a background of black. I'll use the transparency to about 90. A transition of all, a duration of 700. I want to add some dynamic styles to this. It's open. Then I'll give this an opacity of 100 as an opacity of 0, like that. Just format this. And then next we want to add the modal. So I'll say modal. So then I create a div. I'll give this div some Tailwind classes. They're going to be dynamic, so I'll use backticks. I give this modal a position of relative, a z of 10, a width of full, a maximum width of MD, rounded of 2XL, a BG of secondary background, which is coming from our custom colors, a border white. I will use the transparency to 10, px of 6, a padding vertical of 12, a shadow of XL, a transform property, a transition of all, a duration of 700, and then we're going to add the dynamic styles. So we're going to say it's open. We give this modal a translate y of 0, s will give it a translate y of full. Now, what this means is that when the modal is open, it's going to have a translate y of 0. It's going to be at the close to the center of the web page. Now, when it's not open, it's going to scroll down. Okay, it's going to have a negative. It's going to have a translate y of full. It's going to go down off the viewport. And also, I'll say is open. I'll give it opacity of 100, and just do opacity of 0. And then inside this modal, we're going to have that star button to actually close the modal. Create a button tag which will give some Tailwind classes, absolute, a right of 4, a top of 4, test gray 400, spell that gray correctly, test gray of 400, and over I'll give it a text of white, and then I'll give it a transition property. Then I'll give it an Arial label. It's going to be close modal, and then on click we're going to run the onClose that we're going to pass to this function. Okay, the onClose function. And then inside this button, we're simply just going to render this icon, do X, which we're going to get from React icons. And then finally, the children of the modal, because the modal is going to be reusable, we're going to have either the contents of the search, the content of the search, or the content of the sign-in. So the children are going to be rendered right here inside the modal. So I just format this. So now we have our reusable modal. Let's actually use it. So we're going to create another modal, create our sign-in modal. So I'll say sign in modal.tsx rfc. Get rid of these imports. Now all we have to do, this modal is going to return a modal. Just call our modal components, call that from our modal, because they are in the same folder. So it's going to be ./modal. They're basically in the same folder. And then when we over on this, it's going to say it's missing the following properties from type is open, onClose, and children. So for the children, it's very simple. The children is going to be whatever we have in between this opening and the closing modal tag. So for this, I'm just going to add. So first, I'm going to add a h2 tag that's going to say sign into tech blog. And then for the states, we're going to be getting, remember that the states are global states we already created with Zostand. So we can make use of that state anywhere in our application. So let's make use of them. So up here, I'm going to say const, and the structure we're going to get is equals to use modal store. And then we can destructure the is sign in open, close sign in. And then we can pass them as prop. We can say onClose is going to be equals to close sign in, and then we can say is open is going to be equals to is sign in open, like that. And now to actually see this modal, we're going to place this modal in our root layout. Okay, so we can see this modal everywhere in our application. So I'll go to src app, then I'll go to this root layout file right here. Then right here, I'm just going to output the sign in modal, like that. I'll save that. Now we'll go back to the web page and we have an error. The use sign-in modal has to be a client component, because where is that use client sign-in modal? That's because the sign-in modal is going to be a client component because we are making use of this use modal store, which is a client side, which is actually running client side JavaScript. Okay, because this is basically a hook. You can only run hook in Next.js in a client component. So up here, we're going to say this is going to be a client component by using the use client directive from Next.js. I'll save that. That should get rid of our error. Yeah, great. But we don't actually see the modal. Now the reason for that is because remember that I said that inside this use modal store, by default, this is signing modal open is going to be false. So when we set this to true, we should be able to see the modal. I can actually see the modal right here. And also, I'll just refresh that again. You can see that when we click on this or click on this X, it's going to close the modal. So I'll set this back to false because we don't want to open the modal with this. We want to open the modal from this button right here, from this login button we have in our Navbar. This login button right here. So inside this Navbar up here, I'm going to say const, or the structure what we're going to get is going to be equals to use modal store. And then we're just going to destructure the open signing. And then I'll just scroll down to this button right here. I'm going to hook up an event and I'll click event handler to this, which is going to be open signing, like that. And now when we save this and go back to our project and we'll click on login, it's going to open up this modal. And we can actually close the modal, click on login, and then we'll close it with this X icon right here. I'll just increase the size of that X icon a bit. So I'll go to sign in modal, go to modal, And where's our X? It's going to be this. I'll just say size 25. It's too big. Just use 22. Perfect. So now we have the login module. Let's actually start the contents of this module. So I want to go back to the sign in module. I give this h2 tag some Tailwind classes, text of XL, a font of semi-bold, a text of white, and a margin bottom of 2. After this h2 tag, I'm going to have a paragraph tag, which is going to output continue with one of the providers below. So I'll give this some Tailwind classes, text XM first gray of 400, margin bottom of 8. I'll save that. And we should be able to see that right here. For this paragraph tag, I'm going to create a div and we're going to give a Tailwind class of space y of 4. Then we're going to create 2 buttons. The very first one is going to be for the Google login. So I'll create a button for that. So I'll say button. That button is going to have these Tailwind classes right here. We're going to have an icon FC Google. I'll get that from React Icons. Give it a Tailwind class of text XL, and then after the icon we're gonna have continue with Google. Okay, save that, and we should actually see that right here. Login, and we actually see the button continue with Google. So the next one is going to be for GitHub. So then you create another button. This one is going to be, just copy this one here, then I'll paste that right here. So it's going to be FA GitHub, and then this one is going to be continue with GitHub. Then we add some Tailwind classes to the button. Just paste the styles right here. Okay, save that. And when I go back to the modal, I'll click on login, and we actually see both the continue with Google and the continue with GitHub button. After both of those buttons, after these div that wraps on both of those buttons, we're going to create a paragraph tag. I was going to output this right here. By continuing, you agree to our terms and privacy policy. And then I give this some Tailwind classes, a text of XX, first gray 500, margin top of 8, and a text of center. Save that. I actually see that right here. And with that, we have the sign in modal. So let's create the search modal. So I'll just create another modal. Go to our modals folder, create another component called search modal.tsx. IFC. I'm basically going to do the same thing. We're going to call our modal. And then up here, we're going to say counts of the structure. What we're going to get is going to be equals to use modal store from source stand. The structure are the close search and also the is search open state. Okay. And then right here, we can say we'll pass in the prop on close is going to be equals to close search. And then the is open is going to be equals to is search open. Now, in between the opening and closing modal tag, we're going to create a div. We'll give this div a Tailwind class space y of 4. And then inside this div, we'll create an input that's going to be of type text, and the placeholder is going to be search articles. And then I'll pass an autofocus attribute right here. This autofocus attribute is going to, when the modal opens, the input is going to be focused automatically. You don't have to click on the input to focus on it. We'll give this input a Tailwind class, width of full, padding of 4, rounded XL, BG, black. I'll reduce the transparency to 40. I'll give it a border. I'll give it a border of white. The border color is going to be white, and I'll reduce the transparency to 10. A text of white, a text of LG, outline of none, on focus. I'll give it a border indigo of 500 and save that. Now we should actually see that. I won't click on the search modal, and we've not actually added the search modal to the layout file. So let's do that. So I just go to the root layout file, then down here I'm just going to call the search modal. And don't forget, inside this search modal, since we are making use of a hook, we have to make this a client component. So say use client. And then finally, inside this navbar.dss file, we're going to actually get the open search, and then we'll click on that search icon. There's a search icon. This right here. We'll click on this li tag. So on click, I want the function open search. Save that. And now we'll go back to the web page. We'll click on search. It's going to open up our search modal. We can actually type on this search and so this search for articles. Now let's actually create the UI for the auto completion. So for that, I'm just going to paste some dummy data. Just paste some dummy data up here. Basically, two results we are getting from a search. Okay, but this is going to be coming from the database. Okay, when we actually work on the back end. So when we type, it's going to actually fetch the articles and actually map what you actually type in the input. So for now, to create the UI, we're just going to make use of this dummy data. So down here, create another div. Give this a Tailwind class of maximum height of 80, overflow y of R2, a rounded of XL. Give it a border of white. I'll reduce the transparency to 10. A divide of y, then the divide color, divide white, also reduce the transparency. Inside this div, we're going to map through the results. I'll say results dot map. I call each one a result, and then I'm going to return a JSX. I just want to have a button in there. This button is going to have a key. It's going to be the results dot the ID of the result. I give this some Tailwind classes: a width of full, a text of left, px of 4, py of 3, text gray of 300, a transition, and over. I give it a bg white, reduce the transparency to 5. Then also on over, I'll give it a text of white like that. Then inside the button, I'm just going to output the results dot title. I'll just format this and save that. Now we'll go back to the modal. We'll click on the search modal. We actually see those auto completion we just created right here. But it's too close to this input. I want to add a margin between them. We don't really have to add a margin since we gave them a space y of 4. Okay, this is supposed to be inside this div right here. Okay, it's supposed to be inside this div where we are giving them a space y of 4. So that's going to add a margin between both of them. Click on search modal. I can actually see the space between both of them. I'll just give this a cursor of pointer. I'll give this a cursor of pointer. Yeah. So with that, we are basically done with the first part of this tutorial. We have the login modal, we have the search modal, we have the right page, we have the home page, we have the articles page, we have the about page. Okay, I also have the footer. Now in the next part, we're actually going to work on the back end.